Story 1. Daughter to a single dad here. There was this myth I discovered when I was young. It's something almost all my female friends were told, but thankfully not me. The myth is the belief that there are such things as girl business that only your mom or other older females in the family should help you with. As the only girl in the house growing up, my dad helped me understand and deal with a great many girl business problems. Meanwhile, all my friends had their moms handle it for them. When my friends found out my dad was sort of in charge of handling those with me, they were shocked. They asked me why I didn't have an aunt or grandma to help instead. Well, my aunts all live at least 10 hours away and my grandma is even further away. I began to realize over the years that there might actually be negative side effects to this girl-only way of thinking. Sure, having another female assist you with those issues might be less awkward and embarrassing, but there's already an inherent awkwardness and embarrassment associated with it. Learning to overcome the embarrassment is part of growing up and accepting your body. Furthermore, I have since grown up and began studying psychology, and I have done some research into this further for my studies. I have to do a more in-depth and wide research survey and analysis to come to conclusions. I'd be comfortable with being peer-reviewed, but I have a theory that the girls-only mentality causes relationship issues later in life. Young girls grow up thinking that there are some aspects of womanhood that men not only understand but can't understand. It makes them not only less trusting of male partners, but also keeps them from seeing men as equals when it comes to parenting. Sure, if you're the mom of a young girl, there's no reason for you not to continue helping her with all the complex feminine issues she's going through. Just be careful not to make her think her dad doesn't empathize or understand too. Don't make him this distant third party who will never get it or someone who should not be involved because he has a different organ down there. That's the same toxic female attitude that causes soccer moms to call the cops on a dad when he takes his daughter to the park to play. Men can parent too, and they're surprisingly good at raising young girls on their own. Men and women are equally capable of taking care of a child. There shouldn't be tasks relegated only to women or only to men. Story 2. The men are dopey morons barely capable of caring for themselves, let alone their kids. This was my ex-wife. I did the lion's share of cooking and cleaning because she was always tired from work. We both worked, but she constantly complained that I didn't do enough, not just to me but to her family and friends as well. Basically, she would wash laundry, leave the dry clothes in piles everywhere, and claim she was wife of the year. It's one thing to hear your wife constantly demean your hard work, but to have to listen to the constant side talk from her family about it has messed me up with my head over the years. Eventually, I quit helping out and just did my own thing. Unfortunately, the piled dishes, overflowing trash, the blanket of leaves in the yard, and all the backed-up tasks didn't deter any of the complaints. Complaints turned into verbal torment and then gaslighting. Almost 2 years after leaving her, I swing by every now and then to grab the kids and her house still always looks like a landfill. I would have given a lot for my ex to acknowledge my contributions to the household. Story 3. I'll never understand the very common belief that men can't or refuse to care for children. I'm divorced and have full custody of my young daughter. My ex was too busy being hammered for the most part to care for a child at all. 3 years later, mom's still doing the same stupid crap and my daughter doesn't really even care about her. I've practically raised her single-handedly, along with her older brother who can only come over on weekends because I haven't had the money for an attorney to help me see what my adoption options are. You gotta be a warrior for the kids, man. Changing diapers is just part of the daily maintenance. Keeping them fed and dressed is the absolute bare minimum. They need support. They need a person to drive them to practice or wait for them at the finish line of their first 5K. My son had one this weekend. Mom was going to just drop him off, but I went and cheered for him, even though we had to wake up at 5:30 a.m. on a Saturday. They need help with homework and other school activities. They need guidance and answers to questions they don't even know they have. They need help regulating emotions properly because they're new to them. They need a role model. Dads can do these things. Chuck the norms out the window and just make sure your kids have every tool available in order to succeed. I understand that as a single father, I'm pulling mom duty as well, but I don't understand how any of the things I do should not be expected of most dads. And it is slightly infuriating to get that clueless bumbling dad treatment. I've changed more diapers than a lot of moms. Full credit to all the amazing moms out there too. Story 4. That we can never not be in the mood, and if we are, we must be sick, cheating, or not attracted to them anymore. This was such a huge problem in my previous relationship. I actually have a fairly high and we're usually down for intimacy, but my ex ended up having an even higher than mine. She was always looking for intimacy during pretty much any downtime we had together. This was obviously great during the beginning of our relationship when everything was new and exciting, but as things cooled off a bit, it became a problem whenever I would say no. I definitely felt a lot of pressure, since men are supposed to always want to fool around. I think she probably was also attaching a lot of self-validation to my wanting her physically. That is just not a healthy way to view being physical with your partner. In the end, I would give in and get into it with her even if I wasn't really in the mood, because if I didn't, I'd end up having to nurture her bruised ego for a few hours while she complained that I didn't find her attractive anymore. The irony is that the cycle ended up being a complete turnoff and did eventually stop wanting to be intimate with her at all because it had basically become a chore. Us dudes are not robots. We're not programmed to always be down to play. Sometimes, we just want to chill and spend quiet times with our lady. Story 5. I've overheard comments in public about how strange it is to see a father out with his toddler daughter. I rarely ever get offended, but it makes me really worked up when I hear ignorant things like that. I'm sorry your perspective has been so limited. As the father of a toddler daughter, this stuff makes me anxious. Every time I take her somewhere without her mother, I feel like people are staring at me and trying to figure out if I've stolen her. Even just the other day, we were all out in the front yard and she wanted to walk down the sidewalk. My wife stayed in our yard and I walked down the sidewalk with the baby. We got down to the end of the street and it was time to turn around and go back, but my daughter wanted to walk out into the street and got a little fussy when I wouldn't let her. I ended up having to pick her up and carry her back. She wasn't throwing a tantrum or screaming, just doing the usual toddler whining when she didn't get her way. I swear, one of her down-the-street neighbors was staring daggers at me and I legitimately thought she was going to say something. Have you never seen a father have to carry a slightly whiny toddler before? If it had been my wife in the same situation, no one would even look twice. The worst is taking your daughter to the park or playground, especially if it's during normal working hours and all the helicopter mom groups are out. I like to actually play with my kids in the playground, pushing them in the swings, helping them get across the big monkey bars, etc., instead of just sitting on a bench staring at my phone. Every time you get glares and stare downs like you're a criminal. Story 6. Man can't multitask. Every time I hear that, I have to stop what I'm doing and get angry. One of my female coworkers just switched to another role, so I took up one of her annual projects. It takes a lot of daily coordination between several different departments. I made one mistake out of several hundred opportunities to mess up, and it was an insignificant and cheap mistake to fix. When she heard it, she casually mentioned, "Well, I guess men aren't as good at multitasking." Yeah, it's totally that. It definitely has nothing to do with the fact that this is my first year herding cats with this disastrously mishandled project across departments that like to agree to things then promptly forget about them and have to be reminded 7 times only to get around to it 1 hour before the work is set to begin, rinse and repeat for each day over the 2-month-long project. Nah, it's totally because I'm a dude. To be fair, nobody can actually multitask. What people who claim they can multitask extremely well do is switch their attention between 2 tasks effectively. The only time one can multitask is when one task has been automated or does not require attention, and we are able to focus exclusively on the task that does require our attention. Story 7. We miss signs when women give them because they are stupid or we are not interested. We see them, but we don't want to be creepy or jump to conclusions. Even if there's practically no chance at all that she's not flirting with me, there's always the, but what if she is? It's not even necessarily about getting shot down. I don't want to be that guy. You know the one, the guy who's one of those guys who make it difficult for women to conduct their lives because every sign of friendliness is taken as an invitation by creeps, thus contributing to a situation that makes literally nobody happier. That's my real reason. I don't imagine she likes the idea that every guy in a 5-mile radius needs her to individually reject them, and I sure as hell don't want to be one of those guys. What do you mean? Dude, she's literally giving you a dance right now. What, now she has to be a total Puritan too? I'm joking, but not actually that much. I've literally had a waitress give me special attention while they were packed to bursting and touch me multiple times, and even though I'm like 99.9% sure there was flirtation, what if it wasn't? This is how I came across it. What if she just has more liberal limits than I do? Does she now have to go on her guard because some creep thought her friendliness was flirtation? Not if I'm that potential creep, she isn't. Us guys can't read minds, and making a move is always nerve-wracking. What if those signals are actually bust? Hit the like button if you're on the same wavelength, and don't forget to subscribe for more wild myth-busting stories. Story 8. That we cannot parent as well as women, that we need a random woman to come hold a man's child because they're crying, that we are babysitting when our spouse isn't with our babies. I'm a nurse, and before that, I was a nurse's aide working in a nursing home, changing adult diapers every day. One day I was at a restaurant holding my daughter when I realized that she had a dirty diaper. I handed her to my wife so I could extract myself from the booth when a woman at the next table made that disapproving noise and said, "Typical." I stood up, took my daughter back along with the diaper bag, turned to this woman and said, "Please, lady, I'm a nurse. I've changed the diapers of people bigger than you." And I went off to the bathroom. Even so many men's restrooms don't even have baby changing tables. I had that issue once with my son, probably 5 years ago or so. I wound up walking into the women's room, after knocking to see if it were empty, to use the changing table. I had one lady call me out for it when she walked in on us. When I explained the situation, she apologized and stayed by the door to let any other woman who may have come in know what was up. Then she went to management to tell them we needed one in the men's room. It was super nice of her to try to help when she realized how men have it in some restrooms. Story 9. That we're all not interested in or incapable of being involved in the planning of our weddings. I cannot tell you how many comments like, "Remember, it's her day, not yours," I received during the 2-year lead up to her wedding. I'm not going to lie to you and say I've been looking forward to getting married since I was 12 or something, but I took an active interest with my wife in the planning of her wedding. It's not my day, it's hers. Screw that. It was our day. We planned it together. Her vision definitely brought it all together, and she did an astounding job, but she didn't just make decisions on her own. We talked together about and worked together on every single thing involved in the event. We were both ecstatic with how it turned out. It turned out beautifully. I try not to toot my own horn very often, but I never thought the best party I'd ever go to would end up being my own. Story 10. That men find it normal to cheat and brag about it. My feeling is that cheating is a symptom of something else. I'm not condoning it, but when I'm sad and depressed, I drink and smoke. When I'm feeling lonely and unheard, I want to reach out to friends or go on the internet to talk to strangers. When I'm hungry, I'll eat. I think that everyone, when they're not fulfilled in some area, will seek to fulfill it. Still, cheating is wrong, but it's not as black and white as he or she is a piece of crap. It's probably more of a sign that the couple should break up or work through it. Also, cheating is far more prevalent than people would like to admit. Vice versa, when I'm happy and fulfilled, I don't seek or crave things to cope and supplement. On point. I don't know if anyone among my bros has ever cheated nor would ever want to cheat. It's just not cool. Story 11. Get too close to a child and you're automatically branded a kiddie fiddler. Dude, I've been working at a dojo for 17 years and in the public school system for 8. I still get shivers when a kid randomly runs up and hugs me because I'm nervous that parents will think something is wrong about me. Just like last week, I walked into an ice cream shop with my wife and I guess the entire town girls soccer team for my grade, 4th, was in there celebrating a win. All the little girls were yelling my name and a few ran up and hugged me. I was literally sweating, thinking, oh god, people are going to think things. Thankfully, a few parents did know who I was and told the other parents, oh, he works with the kids and he's one of the good ones. I just want to add that while I'm thankful that a few parents let others know I was one of the good ones, I don't think it should be necessary. Being an awful person should not be the default. It's sad that over the years I've just made it part of my known persona that I love personal space and have a huge personal bubble so that people aren't offended and usually don't ever ask or run up to me to give me hugs much anymore. Story 12. Showing emotion is a weakness. It isn't. We have just as many emotions as women, and our emotions are just as valid. A month ago, I had my bachelor party. As I got married 2 weeks ago and had all my best men around for a party, I'm very much the organized one in our friend group, and I love my friends dearly. Being the organized one in my relationship also means that I was planning a great chunk of my wedding. Unfortunately, at the same time, I'm currently working on a very stressful project that is in the closing phases of its deadline. I knew I was stressed, but, harden up. Now, as of late, my beautiful Labrador has been having skin issues and getting sick. My wife has been upset and had no idea what was wrong with him. I was worried about whether he would recover. Update, he's recovering and growing fur back. So we're partying, pretty hammered by this point. My 2 closest friends and I are talking, music pumping and having a good time. My best friend says to me, hey man, have you taken Bubba, my dog, to the vet? He's not looking too flashy. I replied and said, yeah, they don't know what's wrong with him. As I said that, this hot wave of emotion came over me, and all the stress of the last 12 years just came out and I crumbled. I was fighting it back because who does that? And you know what my friends did? They put their arms around me. They held me. One of them wrapped a blanket around us and said, you're safe here, bro. Let it out. I know you've been struggling. We love you and let it go. And I cried. Everything about me just crumbled in that hug. All the stress of the wedding, work, my dog, the loss of my grandfather, the stress of burdening myself with everyone's problems. It was like crying acid. He held me for half an hour while I sobbed and let go of all my problems, and when I was done, one of them made me tea and we chilled. As this was happening, my other friends came around and just sat with me. We put on chill music and just settled right down for an hour or so. Once I'd settled, we cranked back in and had an amazing night. I love my friends dearly. Good brothers make all the difference in life. I've been the happiest I've ever been. Story 13. That we only tell women our feelings to coerce them into bed. Like, wow, how new and amazing this relationship is. I'm so glad I found you. That is uncomfortable vulnerability, not some sort of plot. I had a conversation with a girl once where I opened up and said she felt distant. We slept together that day. In my head, it naturally progressed to that. And afterwards, she tells me that I only said what I said so we could fool around. I'm not allowed to express myself without an agenda. Apparently with her, there was some UN-level negotiation going on behind the curtains that I was oblivious to. I legit questioned myself if I had said it irrationally with that goal, but then I grew up and realized she was just messed up in the head and had zero credibility. It's crazy how some see hidden agendas when we're just being real. Keep staying true to yourself, and let the skeptics do their thing. Story 14. Men think about intimate relations every X number of seconds. I'm a grown man with a life. I have more to think about than just getting some. It's a bigger lie than it seems. Not only do men not think about it every however many seconds it was, like 12 or something, but many women think about it as much as men. It perpetuates the notion that women don't like physical relations and men want them all the time at any time. Men on average might want it more, but applying a preconceived notion about a group to an individual is always a stupid idea. Also, I wonder if men actually want it more, or if men are expected to want it more so they can express their desire more. And women are not encouraged socially to be overly sensual, so many tend not to express some extent of their desire. These are broad statements too. I'm definitely not saying all women subdue their urges or that all men are loud and proud about how excited they are. Just suggesting cultural reasons why it might sometimes appear that men on average want it more. Story 15. Men are worse communicators than women. It really depends on the man and the woman. I think men are better communicators when we actually want to be, but generally, men don't like to talk about their problems or what is stressing them out. We'd rather just zone out for a little while and relax. Usually, we only bring it up when we need help or advice. Also, we just generally don't communicate our feelings to women at all, so they think we're bad at it. Story 16. We're less mature than women. There are no exceptions. It's actually proven that boys and men are more likely to reconcile and start diplomatic talks than hold grudges, as opposed to girls and women. The simplest example is in kindergarten, when boys fight and even hurt themselves, but within the same day they're best friends, as opposed to girls who gossip, get mad at each other, and hold that grudge for days. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you made it this far, I'm sure you'll also enjoy Women Share Man-Child Red Flags. Story 5 will make you cringe. See you in that video.